Boom, boom, boom. We'll just let every wheel spin for just a second as we let everyone on in the room. And boom, boom, boom. Away we go. What is up, Broncos country? It's Wednesday night, which means it's time for MHI. I am Luke Patterson, and join with me as always, Thomas Hall. How we doing, Tom? How was your fourth?
It's good, man. Low key, which is exactly what I wanted. So my birthday was low key, and my 4th of July was low key. So it was a good change from the pace that I've been on. So it was nice. How about you?
Yeah, same thing, man. It was uneventful, which is usually good, and it was pretty uneventful here in Broncos country. I mean, usually
Yep.
news right now is usually bad news. We went into that a little bit last week, but the Broncos so far avoiding any hiccups, which is good. You don't want to see your guys in the news for any of the wrong reasons. We got into a Wuzurike a little bit last week. He's under investigation by the state of Colorado, in addition to the NFL suspending him for gambling. Now, it does look like that's going back to some college stuff as well. So, college and pro stuff intertangled, if you will. But other than that, the Broncos are keeping a relatively low profile of all of themselves collectively. It makes me feel good, man. I hope everybody is enjoying themselves. I hope everybody is getting ready because in about 2 weeks, Tom, training camp is going down and Sean Payton is going to expect these guys to work.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The second training camp under Sean Payton, I think. Last year was a bit odd and a lot of differences from the times before, but hopefully everybody is locked in and ready to go. And he's done his job of bringing in the guys he wants for the most part, getting rid of some of the old guard. So maybe this is the training camp where it all kind of starts to come together.
You would hope so. At least that's the goal for a first round quarterback in Sean Payton's system. Shiloh coming in. Good evening, everybody. Have a good show, fellas. And we appreciate you coming in, Shiloh. I see Jeffrey coming in here. We're going to ask the question about Courtland Sutton, whether or not Courtland's going to hold out. We'll let you know. We will debate it. There's an NFL.com report suggesting that could be an option over at milehighhuddle.com. David coming in. Good evening, Broncos country. Luke, Tom, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag 12 and 5. Buckham. MHH for life and Denver Broncos for life. Bo knows. Knicks for 6. Bo leave. There's a new one. David, I see what you're doing there. He knows I'm a sucker for new hashtags. Bo leave. That would be great. I'd love to see all of those signs in the stadium in Broncos country because that means Bo Nix is doing well. What do you think of Papa Bear's enthusiasm for his Denver Broncos here in the 2024 season? I mean, Russ is out, Bo Nix is in. Should we be excited?
Well, it's great to see the enthusiasm, and it's a little, like I've said, it's a little hard to muster it up lately, but you gotta support them until you see what happens on the field, and hopefully our enthusiasm is rewarded with better play on the field than last year.
Oh, that's the goal, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
I think with the start of each season, regardless of the club, the team, who the quarterback is, there's a renewed excitement for the season in general. It's been a long time since we've got to see NFL football. And I'm not talking about OTAs, I'm not talking about minicamp, I'm talking about actual football, right? We're the Super Bowl, February, that's where we're at. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm starting to get the shakes, Tom. I'm ready for some NFL football. And I'm not talking about training camp or preseason either. Of
Yeah.
course, it starts in the off season. You're hoping guys are doing the right things, but here in about a couple weeks, training camp starts. Let's lean into it. There's a report over on milehighhuddle.com right now that our guy Keith Cummings wrote up from across the pond. Asking the question rather, one Coral Smith from NFL.com, if Courtland Sutton will be a camp holdout. And in the article, there was some reference to Jerry Jeudy's trade. Courtland Sutton's role as the wide receiver 1 in the offense becoming more important. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com and read all about it. Tom, if I were to ask you straight up right now, Wednesday, July 10th, does Courtland Sutton report to training camp day 1? You would say?
Yes. Yes. I think he
Ooh.
reports because he really doesn't have any leverage. I mean, he really doesn't. His play doesn't warrant him holding out for more money. I mean, I get you can be disgruntled with your contract, but that he already signed, which was actually a lucrative contract back when it happened. They didn't take any money away from him. And on top of it, this is a season where they're kind of building, their team. And Sutton's not in the future. He just isn't at his age and the way that they're trying to rebuild this team younger. I don't see his future there. So if he holds out, he's going to be it's going to be crazy to hold out. If he wants more money, come in and play really well and see what happens.
29 years old, right? He's got a base salary of about 13 mil, 1.2 signing bonus. I'm hearing, and I don't think anybody's breaking any news here, Broncos country's heard this for the last couple months. It's around 3 million more that Courtland wants guaranteed. Not a lot when you're considering Rob Walton is the richest owner in North American sports, one of the richest owners on the globe. But I'm frustrated. I mean, you and Scott were kind of debating it before the show, and that's always fun, right? Our pre and post conversations on this show or never cease to amaze me. We have a lot of fun. But no, I come in and you and Scott are debating, and Scott had a little bit of a point. If you're Courtland Sutton, you're looking this week to week. You're wondering about what's guaranteed. You're looking at injuries. I've said it before. If I'm Courtland Sutton, the Broncos have sold me, we got you a new quarterback 5-6 years in a row now. I mean, I'm kind of tired of it. I at least want to get my back. Then again, you're the Denver Broncos. Why isn't George Paton, Sean Payton, the Walton Penner ownership group, why aren't they just stamping this $3 million approval for Courtland Sutton today?
Yeah, for how cheap it is, it really does sound like what's the big problem. So I don't know. I don't know if the 3 million that's reported is true, or if he wants more or less or whatever it may be. But they've actually drawn a line in the sand, it seems, and they're not gonna budge. And I understand both sides. But again, Sutton was a good player last year, not great. He needs to show more greatness if he wants to be able to hold out and ask for more money. And I just think that's what they're seeing. They're like, well, we're not going to allow all of our players to say we want $3 more million here and there. It's like, I guess you got to start somewhere, but it'll be interesting. I think he's going to come to camp, but it will be interesting if he doesn't.
I absolutely love it, Tom. I'm going to push back against your theory here in just a little bit, but let's open it up to Broncos country. I want to hear from the fellas. I want to hear from the ladies out there. I want to hear from all of our community. Let us know. Is Courtland Sutton going to show up to training camp? Would you pay him the extra $3 million guaranteed that we're speculating that he wants? Let us know, and we'll give you a shout out in the chat. Just like our friend Kathy coming in from Germany, man. Kathy's one of our favorites here on this show. She's one of us saying, hey, Luke, Tom, and Scott, if Courtland Sutton would rather follow his buddy Wilson, try to trade him for as much as they can get. I don't care about players that don't want to be here. Kathy, I get that. It's interesting that you say this, because this is something Tom and I have been complaining about for weeks, Tom. I think that's fair to say. We're tired of talking about this, and Broncos country's tired of hearing about it. Neither one of us can figure out why the Broncos are in this position and why Courtland Sutton's in this position. They almost deserve each other at this point, because they're both frustrating the hell out of me. It's almost like they were meant to be. It's interesting that Kathy brings this up, because I think she represents a good base in Broncos country that says, look, you don't want to be here, move along. However, Kathy, when you go back and you start to read Keith's article over at milehighhuddle.com, he put together kind of a timeline of Courtland Sutton's offseason, and with some quotes in there from our last appearance during offseason workouts with Courtland. And Courtland says he does want to be here. He says he wants to be a Ring of Famer. He says he wants to win 2-3 Super Bowls. I mean, that's maybe following the Russ thing. Maybe you're a little tone deaf, but he's not winning 2-3 Super Bowls in Denver the next 2 to 3 years. We are hoping this is a playoff team in the next 2 to 3 years, Tom. So I don't know if Courtland Sutton's just trying to say all the right things to get the bag from Denver, but if you're Courtland, why not just request a trade and try to move on? I just don't get it.
Yeah, if he wanted out, he would have requested a trade, not just held out for more money, in my opinion. He probably still wants to be here, but he wants some like you said, a little bit more assurance by being here, because, you're right. The Broncos have not done him any great service as far as putting out quality teams on the field. Now he also he's part of that. He's been on the field and they haven't won, so he's part of it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is just an interesting thing. The fact that he did come to OTAs, he came to the mini camp. He held out of the first one, came to the second one for a little while, I think. I mean, it's just it's just an odd odd way of going about business. It just seems like it's almost like I want more money, but it's just a little bit. I just want to irritate you a little bit more than I really want to, stick it to you unless you give me the money kind of feel.
No, I agree with that. It's an odd situation. I mean, you said it best. I don't think that Courtland Sutton has much leverage. I think the Broncos could do without and not really give it much of a second thought to start the season. We'll see how that goes. We don't know if it's going to be Jarrett Stidham. We don't know if it's going to be Bo Nix. We're going to debate that here in a little bit as well. But I wanted to get to some of our friends in the chat. Pearl Heater coming in saying, look, a contract's a contract and play it out. I completely understand that, Pearl, and I think that to a certain extent also. And then I consider my life and I consider my money, right? And I feel if I do exemplary work, then I should be able to be compensated for that, regardless of how people feel or what the fans or media are saying, whatever. Like, I want to get paid more each year, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know. Contracts are a little different. Tom, what would you say to this? Because I think we can relate as normal people, as normal human beings. And I'm talking, we're not millionaires, but I can also understand why an aging, injured wide receiver would want to try to collect as much money as he possibly can towards the end of his career.
True, but he also him and Tim Patrick signed a contract kind of about the same time that neither one of them really lived up to. So, it goes both ways. I mean, don't get me wrong. Courtland Sutton didn't get hurt every year and just completely missed out. And he played pretty well last year. But when they signed both those guys, they were expecting both Sutton and Patrick to be really good wide receivers for this team. And what they got was one that didn't show up and because they got injured, and the other one that was good but not great. And I remember that seemed like a pretty lucrative contract at the time for wide receivers. It doesn't seem like it now because of the more contracts have been given out to wide receivers that were bigger and bigger, but at the time they were pretty sizable. So, it's one of those things. Like, I understand why he wants a little bit more money, but I also understand that he got a lot of money and didn't really fulfill that contract to the degree that fans would have hoped.
You're exactly right. Why is it that Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton are like in the same scenario with different variations? Like, they both got paid together. They both underperformed their contracts. I've been on record saying Tim Patrick's not going to make this team in 2024. I could be wrong. I don't know that I'm really expecting Courtland Sutton to show up to training camp, if I'm going to be honest. I think he tried to say the right things. I think he's trying to politic as best he can. And Scott brings up an interesting point in the chat here. I mean, this is the only professional sport where the contracts and the guaranteed dollars never quite stack up to the salary, right? And those big numbers that we love to report about. Roy Osborne coming in here. I think Sutton will show up. If he wants to hold out, it's easy. You go ahead and get rid of him. What's that look like, Roy? Does that look like a release? Does that look like a trade for a bag of chips? You would think if there was significant trade value for Courtland Sutton, he would have been dealt before Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Judy's been a Cleveland Brown for 4 or 5 months now. I don't know that Courtland has any leverage, but I don't know why he'd want to stay in Denver. I'm not sure trading him would be so easy if you're expecting a haul back.
Yeah, it's true. And you got to think too, he's part of the old guard. And whether you like Sean Payton or not, he is putting his stamp on this team as best he can early on. And if he doesn't want a disgruntled wide receiver that was brought in a long time ago who hasn't won anything, he's probably just fine with saying, okay, well, hold out, and that'll give us a reason to not have you on the team. So, I mean, I'm not saying that that's what he wants. I mean, he probably wants him there to catch balls from this rookie quarterback. But if he's not going to fit in, then it's time to go. And if Sean Payton's his image of this team does not include Courtland Sutton, especially a Courtland Sutton who is disgruntled, then he's not going to be on the team.
Yeah, you go head to head with Sean Payton, and Sean Payton usually wins, at least when it comes to, players, and just look at his history. Phil McLaughlin coming in here. What up, Tom, Luke, and Scott? It's the not for long league. So get that money or get out and try to get it somewhere else. It's just my opinion. Hashtag Buckham MHH for life. Thank you for the support, Phil. Thank you for tuning in every Wednesday night. Really, really good friend of the show. Really appreciate your support. Yeah, there's something here. Like, you've I've talked about it. You've talked about it. Phil's talked about it. If you're Courtland Sutton, you got to try to get paid more. But if you're the Denver Broncos, you want to win more games. And Courtland Sutton had a great season last year. He talked about in Keith's article, you read about it over at milehighhuddle.com. He talked about leaving some touchdowns out there on the table. He talked about wanting to improve. He recognizes that. I think Courtland's very honest with himself. I think he's probably a decent guy. You know, you don't hear a lot of negative things about Courtland Sutton in general. I think he's respected. I think guys like him in the locker room. I'm sure they miss him at Jarrett Stidham's throwing camp right now. Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, his wide receiver buddies. I'm sure they all miss him. You know, Tim Patrick's probably down there. I don't think there's any bad blood with his teammates or anything like that. But if you're Courtland Sutton, why not ask to be traded? Why not try, to Phil's point, go either get paid somewhere else or win somewhere else? It appears at first glance that getting paid is more important to Courtland Sutton right now than winning because he wants to stay in Denver. I know that sounds harsh. It is what it is. The Broncos, I don't think, are going to the postseason here in 2024. Anything's possible, but you can't say you want to win 2 Super Bowls and want to get guaranteed dollars out of the Broncos again. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I just don't see it, Tom.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's more of an irritant than a full on like contract dispute to me. It just doesn't seem like it has that same oomph of some of these contract disputes in the past. It's very irritating, but not so abrasive that you're like, get rid of him right now. You know, like he's kind of thing, or he's not causing a huge disruption.
He's not a turd. That's what you're saying. He's not a punk and he's not a turd. I mean, he scrubbed his social media a little bit, but he's doing a good job just, trying to play it neutral, trying to be cool. He doesn't want to be the villain. And I don't think Courtland could be a very good villain. I think he's a really nice, you see him smiling. He's got $1 million smile, right? I mean, I don't think he'd be a very good bad guy, Courtland Sutton.
Yeah. He seems like a nice guy and he wants what he wants, but he doesn't want to be a jerk about it. And that's it. Just, it's one of those polite contract disputes or something, if you can call it that.
Yeah. Well, and maybe we've talked about this briefly on the show. Maybe you're looking at a hold in instead of a hold out, right? Maybe that's what guys are doing now. I don't know. I can't make any sense of it. There's a lot of people smarter in this world than me. You figure it out. But it's just like, all right, Courtland shows up. I'm here, but I'm going to take it easy today. I'm setting the pace. Maybe I'm feeling a little sore, or I don't know if I want to do that today, or I think I'm going to take it easy today. What about the possibility of a hold in, Tom? I mean, I'm on record saying that I expect Courtland to hold out. You think he'll be there day one. What if we're both wrong? And maybe there's some medium ground there. He shows up day one, but he doesn't do a whole lot with a hold in.
He doesn't wear pads. He's like, no, I'm just going to be in street clothes, but I'm here.
Well, hey, there's something to that, Tom, because remember, they're not just going to roll out the pads on day one. Maybe Courtland does light work, to your point, shows up, drop some more balls like he did in off-season drills, right? We drop some balls in position drills from the wide receiver coach throwing you the ball, and then catch a couple, and we shut it down on pads day. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe we decide we don't want to do one-on-ones. I don't know, and I'm not making fun of him for it. I know I've got some facetious tones to me, but there's not a lot of action when it comes to training camp. So it's not like Courtland's missing much. Then again, it's not like Courtland couldn't get better and he doesn't need the work.
Yeah. Well, it's more about knowing the plays, right? This is where you put all the plays in. He's been missing all that. It's not about going out there and, seeing who can tackle better for the most part. It's learning the offense for someone like Sutton. It's not showing them that he can play, right? They know he can play. It's learning the offense. If he's not there, he's not going to learn the offense. And yeah, he had some last year, but there's going to be other wrinkles. It's probably going to be a little bit different of an offense with a different quarterback. So that's what he's really missing out on. Not that he, can't come in later and figure it out, but there's a lot of continuity to get on the field and a lot of camaraderie too. I mean, you're not out there on the field in your training camp. You're not there, fighting with your teammates, people, there's that, connectiveness that you have to have as a team that gets missed out on. And if he's not there, he's missing out on that.
I completely agree with you. And David coming in here, keeping us honest. I appreciate that. Bo Nix and Courtland Sutton are together. They're at TCU. #12-5. David planting that flag in there. And yeah, David's spot on. So at least 12 Broncos are working out together in Dallas. Looks like Courtland's one of them. You got Adam Troutman, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Michael Burton. I don't know why the fullback's there. Jarrett Stidham, Tim Patrick, Courtland, Bo Nix, Jaleel McLaughlin, Jalen Virgil, Michael Bandy, Marvin Mims, and David Sills. So the guys are working out. Courtland is working out over there. I mean, maybe that's a good indication that he does plan on showing up to training camp. I would say all signs would be pointing up, especially if Courtland's working out with his guys in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, and I mean, you're risking a lot if you're out there outside of organized team activities getting hurt, something like that. So, he's putting a little bit of more risk on his plate than showing up to camp, right? Because he's out on his own. If you get hurt, I don't know what his injury clause or anything is, but it feels like if you're not at organized team activities and you get hurt, you're subject to other salary reductions, I think. But
SOL.
Yeah, so it seems like he's a little more dedicated than people are thinking. That's why I think he'll show up at camp.
Yeah, I think he cares. I think he's a professional. It's me being frustrated doesn't mean that Courtland's should be looked at as the villain. It doesn't mean that the Broncos did wrong either. I think there are shortcomings on both parties, and nobody's really wanting to make a final decision. Everybody, it's, I don't know, for the lack of a better term, a Mexican standoff, right? I mean, I don't. Both teams or both sides are waiting for each other to blink, and it's silly when you're looking at a losing football team. I don't get it. But if it were me, I'd want Courtland there. Of course, you need it, especially with Bo. And that's what Kathy's saying. Appreciate you so much, Kathy. Kathy repping Broncos country hard out there in Germany. One of our own. It's all about timing with Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Hashtag Nix for 6. That's what they say, Kathy, right? That's what the experts say. That's what Pro Football Focus says. We've got an article up over at milehighhuddle.com right now. Chad wrote one, and PFF makes a bold claim about Bo Nix replacing Russell Wilson. And in that excerpt, you can see immediately what Kathy's talking about. Sean Payton, Bo Nix, timing, intelligence, preparation. That's what these guys are supposed to be working through. That's what Broncos country should expect. Do you expect Bo Nix to be out there taking starting reps day one in training camp?
He better be. I mean, he's the guy that they're going to hand the keys to this franchise to, right? Kind of thing. I mean, if he's terrible and they don't trust him, sure, they're not going to give him a bunch of first team reps. But if he's actually playing well and they think he's the guy, then they need to do that. They need to give him more reps than anybody else, because we already have seen Jarrett Stidham. We know what he's capable of. We know what his kind of ceiling is. Zach Wilson, you've heard me rant and rave about him long enough. Those guys don't have the potential, so to speak, of what we're expecting Bo Nix to have. And the only way he can realize that is to start to get more reps and get out there and get used to everything. And then hopefully his potential is what they're expecting from a first round draft choice.
Why is it during every MHI you got to bring up Zach Wilson? And of course, he's in the news cycle, Tom. He's in the news cycle right now. Zach Wilson, your very own Denver Broncos own quarterback, Zach Wilson, going through social media, which is, horrible. It's awful, right? We all know that. I'm scrolling. And then you see Zach Wilson name pop up, and Zach Wilson's ex-girlfriend, I guess, married his former teammate or best friend or something like that. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, shocking, breaking news, everybody, hold the phone. I don't know, man. I guess that's Broncos news here in the offseason, right? I mean, what do we expect out of Zach Wilson? I don't know when I was going down that list of players that are in Dallas, if Zach Wilson's name was on it or if I just purposely ignored it. That's kind of the point, right? When you're talking about Zach Wilson, you're wondering, the debate is Jarrett Stidham going to start week 1 in Seattle? And realistically, I could see that happening. Do I want it to happen? No, I'm right with Tom. Bo Nix should be out there day one. You should have earned something, starting reps at least. No one's saying you're going to be anointed the starter day one of training camp, but he should have damn well earned reps, rep 1 as QB1. And I think Broncos country would be very disappointed if they show up out there in the 100-degree heat in the Mile High City to watch Bo Nix throw his first few passes in front of a Mile High crowd. I just don't know if they're going to see it. Sean Payton likes to be sneaky. He likes to play little games, to quote Vic Fangio, right? He's playing silly little games. He likes to try to keep everybody out and keep everything in-house. It makes me wonder if he's going to play some shell games with the public and the media for Bo Nix as the starter.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, when you're if you play those games and you're trying to trick people, you're taking reps away from him. You should be giving him more reps. I mean, that's just the way it is. If Bo Nix is even close to starting over Jarrett Stidham or whatever, it's going to be Bo Nix starting, Jarrett Stidham the backup, Zach Wilson's going to be gone.
Oh, I like it. A bold, hot take. And speaking of bold, our guy WJB coming in from across the pond. Good evening, gents. London calling. Long time since I've caught you guys, but a tough couple months at the draft. I'm back. What have I missed? Anyone looking at being traded? Well, we're talking about it, Will. We don't know what's going on with Courtland Sutton. We've got a report over there at milehighhuddle.com. Our very own Keith Cummings, who is also out of the UK, has an article that's hot up and running about a report from NFL.com suggesting Courtland Sutton could be a camp holdout. We're talking about maybe him being a hold-in on the show. Tom thinks he's going to show up day one of camp. I do not. Then we're wondering if there's some middle ground, that hold in that I referenced earlier. Other than that, I mean, there's not a lot of news right now, Will. It's a good thing because you never want the bad kind of news during this cycle. But Denver Broncos are down there in Dallas Cowboy country working out in Dallas, Texas. It looked like Jarrett Stidham organized a passing camp, academy, whatever I got to say. I mean, obviously, Jarrett Stidham's taking those starting reps because he probably paid for some of it, right? He's probably hosting all these guys. So I'm not going to ask you, Tom, if Bo Nix is getting starting reps at Jarrett Stidham's QB camp.
Yeah, I don't know. But just to answer the second part of your question was, is anyone getting traded? And from my perspective, there's very few people that have a lot of trade value on the Broncos that aren't in their future plans. I mean, they've gotten rid of a lot of the players already that they wanted to trade. So Simmons got cut and Jerry Jeudy got traded. Tim Patrick renegotiated, so he's sticking around. It's really Sutton. And I said P. Ryan might be a candidate if they could get anything for him. But really there's very few players left that they're like trying to actively get rid of other than a couple. So I don't know. I mean, other than Sutton and maybe P. Ryan, I think you're not going to see any other trades because I think most of the players that they've cycled through now, they're Peyton's guys for the most part, few others here and there that aren't, but you may be an edge guy, Cooper, Bonito, or Browning is a possibility if that rookie pops, but I don't see much trade action going on this offseason or this training camp season and preseason, except for, Sutton, depending on that whole contract.
Sean likes to bring guys in. A lot of coaches do in training camp, whether they be new signings or small trades that aren't based on a lot of compensation. We see it every year. I don't know who the Broncos would actively be shopping, to Tom's point, but I would also surmise that the Broncos are looking at depth on the offensive line, on the defensive line, on the edge. What does that mean? That means you got to get some guys and gals to make your bones in the pro scouting department. The draft is over, as Will just said, right? Draft is over, but these pro scouts, they need to have an idea who's on which team. They need to have an idea who realistically may make the team, who may be cut, so they can be waiting on the waiver wire and try to scoop somebody up. I'm all with some of my guys and gals in Cowboys country for Frank Crum. I'm all about it, from Wyoming, right? I'm all about it, but we still need help on that offensive line. He's not the answer. He's a fresh rookie. He's going to be fighting to make a roster spot, but expect Sean Payton to keep an eye out. And Phil McLaughlin coming back. If Bo Nix looks good at camp and starts the first preseason game, looks good, do we then sit him till the season starts? No. If Bo Nix looks good at camp and starts first preseason game number one, it's pedal to the metal. I don't know. The toothpaste doesn't go back into the tube, right? I mean, like, Bo Nix comes out there, he starts preseason game number one. He's been starting in training camp as the starter. He's pretty much solidified his role. There's no turning back, right, Tom?
Yeah, they might limit him a little bit more than they would normally in the last, only two more preseason games after that now, or did they shrink it down to two yet? Not
I
yet.
think it's
It's
3.
still
Yeah, it's
3.
still 3.
They
Mhm.
might not play him as much. They might run him out there for a couple series and then bring him back instead of doing a half like they would, for someone who's still trying to really get their feet under him. So I think they'd still do it just to keep him in the, getting reps. But yeah, they might pare it back if they're like, this is our guy. We don't want him to get hurt.
How about this? Maybe I'll find some middle ground because you got me thinking with you saying Courtland Sutton's going to show up day one. Maybe I'm going to change my mind because he is working out, Tom, as David McGrath let us know, man. Papa Bear coming in hot with the news. Look, Cowboys are not Cowboys. In Dallas, there are 12 Denver Broncos, including Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham, a host of wide receivers, fullback, running backs. They're down there. They're working out. How about this? You see Jarrett Stidham and Bo Nix competing for starting reps in training camp. Shocking, I know, right? NFL preseason game number 1, the Denver Broncos play the Indianapolis Colts in Indy. Let's say Jarrett Stidham starts that game, the game on the road. He's earned those reps. He's the veteran. He's got the whole respect of the locker room, right? According to Mike McGlinchey, who needs to earn some of his own respect in dollars, by the way. But preseason week number 2, the Green Bay Packers come to the Denver Broncos in Mile High City, August 18th at 6 p.m. What better way to introduce your first-round rookie quarterback to Broncos country than in his first NFL preseason game at home against the Green Bay Packers in a night game, Tom? Maybe that makes a little bit of sense. I'm even getting a little goosebumps, and I'm not a Bo Nix guy, right? Like, I didn't have a high grade on him. But damn it if I don't want to see him succeed, man. I am all in with this kid. What do you think? Maybe Bo Nix starts preseason game number 2, Green Bay Packers here in Denver at 6 p.m.
That sounds great, man. And I'm with you 100%. This quarterback, Bo Nix, has got to work out, right? Because I mean, if Stidham is the guy that starts, then the fans aren't going to be that crazy about this team right out of the gate. Now, if they start winning, that'll change things. But yeah, I mean, Bo Nix really does have to be the guy, and he's got to take that starting role away from Stidham, and never look back. Now, whether he can do it or not is still to be determined. We haven't seen him even in training camp yet. I mean, there's no pads on in these OTAs. It's throwing against air and that kind of stuff. We have no idea yet. So hopefully, if he's starting that second game, then I think he's locked in as the starter. I mean, even if Stidham takes the first one, I think if he starts that second game, then they have enough confidence in him to be the starter week 1.
So I completely agree with you. How about this? Just to put a big cherry top on the NFL preseason. You have Jarrett Stidham start preseason game number 1 against the Indianapolis Colts on the road out there in Indiana. You've got Bo Nix making his NFL preseason debut against the Green Bay Packers in Denver in a night game. That's week number 2. And then you have Zach Wilson start the third game against the Arizona Cardinals. Why? It's the third game, and it's against the Arizona Cardinals. Also, you leave the door wide open for the Seattle Seahawks to wonder who is going to be starting week 1 on the road in Seattle. I can see the script has been written. If you're Sean Payton, we are providing it to you here on MHI, and I'm going to slap my name on it. Mark the audio here. I mean, Wednesday, July 10th. That's what's going to happen. Stiddy week 1, Bo Nix week 2, Zach Wilson week 3 in the preseason. That way, we could play silly little games, shadow games. Seattle Seahawks don't know who they're preparing for. Bo Nix or Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah.
Oh my, what will they do?
It's possible, but I think we give the trickery a little too much credit. I don't think teams buy that stuff. Like if someone was hurt in regular season and the other player was taking all the reps and then, oh, well, all of a sudden he's better. I get that. But I think they'll see the writing on the wall. I know they got their own business going on, but they're keeping an eye out on everything else.
They'll know. The Broncos will know it's Bo's job.
No, I think other teams will know it's Bo Nix too by the third preseason game, regardless of who starts it.
Right. And I'm not saying that the Broncos would have an advantage, but I am saying that you're saying that there's no trickery getting over the other teams. And you're right.
There's a little bit.
You're right. There's a little bit. But Sean Payton, is he not tricky? Is he not greasy? Is he not, like he is all that and then some. I mean, I could see him wanting to play these little games with the media, with the public, with the NFL. I don't know. It would frustrate me. It would drive me crazy. But as I get older, I'm trying to see the grand scheme of things. And there aren't a lot of old school coaches, if you will, in the NFL left. And you look at Sean Payton and so many things that Sean does. And I don't know, his paranoia in general kind of remind me of Mike Shanahan in a way. Not the same coach, not the same scheme, same college, right? And with Tony Romo, that's about it.
Eastern
But
Illinois, baby.
yeah, but I don't know, man. I think Sean likes to try to play gamesmanship. I think it's less of a competitive drive and more of he kind of likes to be a thorn in the side to some folks with some of his gamesmanship.
Well, I'll just say I'm anxious to see how it plays out because even if I'm like not a huge Bo Nix guy coming out of college, had some questions or whatever, I want to see him take the starting role by the horns and just like make it apparent that he's the guy. That's what I really want, even as a rookie, because he's going to have his struggles. But man, I would like to see that happen because at least we'll know that this looks like there's some potential future franchise greatness again, right? If they're rolling Jarrett Stidham out again, I'm gonna have a hard time being like, whoa, we're gonna have to buckle up for another great ride here.
No, man. Well, and the Broncos have to understand the business side of this too. Everybody's going to be showing up buying Bo Nix jerseys. That's the first round rookie quarterback. You're going to see it out there. In fact, I know some folks that are waiting just to go out there to get it. Try to see if they can get it autographed there, at camp as the players usually do. And that'll be Bo's first real opportunity. He hasn't really met Broncos country. Broncos country really hasn't met Bo yet. We're kind of both, I don't know, this long distance thing almost with Bo Nix right now, where both sides are going to want to get together. And when you've got moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpa, you cousin, you name them, spending their hard-earned dollars, their hard-earned vacation time, gas, I mean, everything else to get out there at a Broncos camp, and they see Jarrett Stidham 3 days in a row, man, it's going to look a little scarce up there on the berg, on the hill. It's you can't do that. And I think the Broncos, Sean Payton, he has enough of a business sense to understand that. I hope.
Yeah. Well, and I think he can. He seems like he has a personality that can kind of captivate the fans, even if his play isn't spectacular right out of the gate. He does seem like he's a hard worker, it seems, from what I mean, outside looking in, it seemed like he's putting in the work. It's not a Paxton Lynch scenario where he's playing video games instead of doing the work. So
I haven't heard if he has an Xbox yet, Tom.
I hope he does. Get rid of the Xbox and whatever iPad, just get rid of them all and just do the work. But I think he can be that captivating quarterback if his play is good enough for a rookie season. He seems like he says the right things out there on the podium the little that he has said. So I think he has the capability of really kind of taking that franchise role. But again, he has to be good on the field. And that's what we're all waiting to see is he good enough as a rookie to really captivate us as far as the play?
Well, and it's so damn hard to tell, especially in training camp, right, Tom? I mean, I think training camp, I'm guilty of it the most. Tons of false positives out there. I could talk about Zach Allen being my camp MVP. I could talk about Jerry Jeudy being my camp MVP 2 years in a row. I mean, I can go down the list and I'll do that. I'll look into my training camp journals and I'm like, what happened? What happened? I mean, we were clicking out there, it's just practice and the game is just a whole nother thing. So you're exactly right, Tom. I mean, we're expecting Bo to go out there and earn it, but we don't know what it's going to look like. It's going to look different in training camp than it's going to look in preseason, and preseason is going to look way different than the regular season. It's going to be a ride, to be sure. And David always joining us for the ride, so we give David some shout outs. He's been very active in the chat tonight. Let's say that Bo Nix starts. He lights it up. He's got a winning way, and the Broncos have a winning record. What does the 2025 draft look like this next offseason? Tom, I see you grinning, and I hope it's because you want an offensive lineman, because for the love of God, I would love to beef this place up.
I would love to say yes to that. I think they go all in on a top flight edge rusher first thing next year. The Broncos have good edge rushers. They don't have great edge rushers. And I know they drafted one third round, I think it was, but I mean, I think they're going to have to go out to get somebody that can get after the passer on the edge. I would love to say offensive line. And if a quarterback didn't fall to them or where they wanted him, I was like, they better get an offensive tackle, but they've got to get pressure on the quarterback. I really like Browning and Cooper and Benito, but so far, none of them have been so good that I'm like, well, that guy's going to be an elite player next year. I haven't seen it. They're solid players, but they need an elite pass rusher, and they don't have it right now.
No, they don't. And it's funny because if I wasn't going to go O-line, I was going to go pass rusher. And I'm sure for you, just the opposite. If you were going to go pass rusher, we got to beef up this line, Dave. I don't know what's going on there. It's funny too, because I've got some, we all have friends in the scouting world and the NFL world. And I'm texting with them over the 4th of July, and they're saying, man, what if Bo Nix fizzles out and you're sitting there and Shedeur Sanders is at the top of the board? Does Sean Payton want to just pull a Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray and try to offload Bo Nix? And I'm like, no, because Sean Payton doesn't ever admit when he's wrong. That's not gonna happen. And we're not gonna know in a year. But like where David's at here, man, that's a lot of assumptions, right? We're assuming Bo Nix starts, which we want him to, and he should. But a winning way, I like that. I want to focus in on that for a second. Let's say he has a winning way. The Broncos haven't had a winning way in a long time. The Broncos haven't had a bona fide, well-respected offensive leader for a very long time. What if Bo Nix comes in here and we're not even talking about the intangible part? I mean, what kind of leader is a rookie first-round quarterback? I mean, how does he handle himself right now in Dallas with Jarrett Stidham, right? Who's the veteran? He's the incumbent, if you will. You want to respect him. You want to develop a relationship with your quarterback. But everybody knows, Jarrett probably knows too, eventually he's going to be Bo's backup. I mean, the writing is on the wall, is it not?
Yeah, it sure is. And I just want to say, it's not so much that even the draft that would be crazy. If say that Bo Nix comes out and he's I'm not saying CJ Stroud, but CJ Stroud, that was an anomaly. But say he's kind of close and everybody knows this is the franchise guy. Free agency is going to be wild because if they already know for sure that Bo Nix is the guy and they've got him on a cheap contract, they are going to spend some money, as much as they can in free agency, to try and, like you said, beef up that offensive line, get better, maybe find an old aging edge rusher with a tiny bit of gas left in the tank, go out and get a really good safety, fill in these spots that they've lost and next year they'll have the money, right? I mean, I know there's still some dead cap from Russell Wilson, but they'll have a lot of money to do it. I think both the draft and the free agency is going to be fun next year if Bo Nix looks like the real deal.
Wouldn't that be nice to not have to talk about the quarterback position heading into the 2025 NFL draft? I like where David's head's at, man, because that means things went right for the Denver Broncos. Phil coming back in. Appreciate you, Phil. I think there was around 11 centers drafted in this past draft. So is it possible the Broncos could pick one up that would be better than the one that they have? Yeah, it's odd, man. Not a lot of people are recognizing what the Broncos have or don't have at the center position. And I love feel-good stories as much as the next person. I think that the NFL has a bit of a romance to it. I think football has some romance to it, sports in general. And it's a parallel to life. But it's not a parallel to life. Figuring out the starting center. I know Lloyd Cushenberry wasn't anything great, but Sam Mustipher, Luke Wattenberg, Alex Forsythe, these are your options right now. And Alex Forsythe being part of that Bo Nix, Franklin, Oregon Duck reunion trio. I get it. He was your center at Oregon. Doesn't mean he's going to automatically come in and step in and be your center here in Denver. What do you expect out of the center position, Tom? Because I feel like it is a major concern that we are not paying enough attention to.
Yeah. I liked the fact that Luke Wattenberg was versatile. He could play many positions, but I just don't feel like from what I've seen, unless he's taken a big leap, that he's a bona fide, a good starter in this league. Obviously, Alex Forsythe didn't even get on the field. If he was a really good player, they would have tried to work him in. So there's a huge amount of question marks, but I like Phil's question here because if there was a center that was drafted that beats out a veteran. Like maybe they were like, okay, this veteran, we're going to need to think about his replacement, but the center, third round guy just like comes on and pushes him off the roster. Not that he's a bad player, the starter, the veteran. He maybe is still a good player, but they're just going to go with a younger guy. That's the time when the Broncos might pounce. Like, oh, there's a veteran that can give us a really good year. We're going to sign him to a 1 year, maybe 2 year contract and really solidify that center position until we can figure it out with the young guys. So I could see that happening.
I hope they didn't ignore it in the draft, to your point and to Phil's point, because when you look at these guys, Sam Mustipher, Luke Wattenberg, Alex Forsyth, not a lot of experience. I mean, kind of the same profile. Obviously, they're different players. I don't have a ton of knowledge about any of them, if I'm going to be honest. I was unimpressed with what I saw with Luke Wattenberg. Alex Forsyth couldn't even see the field. He struggled in training camp. Wattenberg struggled in training camp. This guy that they just picked up from the Bears and the Ravens, I mean, Mustipher, he leaves a lot to be desired based on reading his profile and seeing his experience. I don't know. Maybe you find a diamond in the rough in a Matt Paradis out of him. That's the hope. But it does seem like the offensive line and pass rushers have been left behind. They've been forgotten. We think that we could supplement a really stellar position for just a bunch of average guys. We'll do it by committee instead of having one or two dominant players on either side of the ball, whether that be O-line, D-line, or edge.
Well, and that's the problem is they haven't had a real dominant player. And I've been saying that for a long time. They're the only dominant player, truly elite player on this team is Pat Surtain. That's it. There's other good players, and there's others that have potential to be really good, but we haven't seen it yet. And that's been bad drafting and poor contracts that they've given out to players that they think were going to step in and be really good. Randy Gregory being one of them. They've just missed the boat, and now it's time. They've got to hit on this draft. There's got to be a diamond in the rough in this draft, along with Bo Nix, in order to take that next step. Because if there isn't, they're still going to be in the same boat. Where are our elite players, right? Where are those elite players that make the team really great? You can have a lot of average starters, but the team's going to have to really overachieve to compete for anything of importance.
Talking about importance, it's MHI. He's Thomas Hall. I'm Luke Patterson. Appreciate everybody joining the show. Look at this guy, KB. What's up, Ken? Coming in. Ken, I know you were watching the fights last weekend. How about our guy, Nate Diaz, baby? Nate Diaz for the win over Jorge Masvidal. What's up, fellas? Who has the best chance to beat out Javonte Williams? I would say Audric Estime, but that little knee injury that happened that caused him to miss the remainder of OTAs. Got a scope done. I think that slowed him down some, but we've been talking about it on the show. I mean, people I trust, they're saying Javonte's not looking the best right now. That's okay. That's the time to do it. But there are a lot of concerns that Javonte Williams may not be the good old angry runs Pookie that we loved, for the past couple of years. It's getting worse. It's not getting better, at least for the career right now of Javonte Williams. That's not to say, Ken, that Javonte couldn't have a career resurgence, but we talk about this every week too. You look at the running back room. Who do you think is going to start week one? Who could pass up Javonte Williams? I don't think it's Samaje Perine. Estime's figuring out life as a rookie and dealing with the little injury thing. I would say Jaleel McLaughlin, Tom, but I just don't know that he has the size or the stature or the ability to run between the tackles the way Sean wants him to in week one.
Well, from my perspective, if Javonte Williams comes out in camp and they just know he's not the guy anymore, like they're just like, he's just not going to do it, then I think it's Perine. Because I don't know if they want to go in with a bunch of unknowns. I know McLaughlin played last year great. He's not a between the tackles guy. He's a change of pace guy who has competition to even make this team again with the pickup, the undrafted free agent that they seem to really like. So for me, if it's not Javonte Williams and Estime, it's Perine and Estime. Even though I said Perine has a chance to be traded or gone from this team, if they think they're done with Javonte, they've got to have a little bit of a veteran presence, and that's Perine. And I think he would be the starter.
Well, and Samaje Perine's another one that is another one that I don't know, false positive last year. I was really excited thinking he'd have more of a role, especially as a pass protector. They used him as check down Charlie in the flats and Texas routes every day out there, Tom. I mean, you were out there with me. So I'm like, oh man, watch out. Fantasy alert, fantasy alert. Maybe Samaje Perine will get everybody a couple touchdowns this year. And man, I don't know. It's tough when you look at these positions, Ken. I mean, damn it. We just got done being worried about the O-line and D-line. And Tom's been on this for a long time, just as Broncos country. Look at your skill positions. The cupboard is bare. You're in the process of trying to develop these guys right now on the spot and starting roles. Talking about the Courtland Sutton, Patrick, who we don't know if Courtland's going to be a holdout or a hold in with training camp. We don't know if Tim Patrick's going to make the team or stay healthy. What is Brandon Johnson's future look like in orange and blue? How about Phil Dorsett, Josh Reynolds? Welcome to Broncos country. I mean, Troy Franklin, yay, Bo Nix, we're teammates, everybody. Like, man, there's a lot of work to do in these positional rooms, Tom, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to be fun, but I think with a lot of this work, there are a lot of growing pains, and we need to remind ourselves of this here on Wednesday, July 10th.
They really need Marvin Mims to be the breakout candidate. He needs to be that guy that kind of steps up. And they're like, okay, now we've got a really good skill player at the wide receiver position. And then, you're hoping Bo Nix is that franchise guy. But then you got to look, okay, who's that third person? Is it a tight end? Is it a running back? That's another area. It's just, you're right. It's low, but they really have to have a couple of these last year draftees kind of step up, and one unknown from this draft to like really launch himself onto this team and being like, wow, we never saw that coming. For them to really start to take that next step, I don't know who that would be, but Marvin Mims has to be one of those young guys that just gets much better this year. I know he went to the Pro Bowl. He's a great returner. I mean, on offense, catching the ball from the quarterback.
You're exactly right. Sean Payton's talked about as much with Marvin Mims. He said, look, it was my bad that we didn't utilize Marvin more in the receiving game because I started Jerry Jeudy. I mean, so it's like, yeah, we know, Sean, we get it, but put it together. We're talking about Bo Nix being smart. Marvin Mims gets a lot of credit from Sean Payton and the coaching staff, and the media like him a lot. He's working like a dog, they say. He's not only out there getting his body right, but he's getting his mind right. He's watching film. He's a gym rat. He's a film rat. I mean, everybody is saying the same thing about Marvin Mims, and you're on it, Tom. He has to be a fundamental piece of this offense. Does it mean he's Tyreek Hill? No. Would it be nice if he was? Hell yeah. But the Broncos have something with Marvin Mims that they haven't had a long time, Tom. It's called speed.
Yeah.
and they have that with Jaleel McLaughlin. How come the two smallest guys on offense are the fastest ones all the time? It's always that way, right? And they probably wish they were a little bigger. And here in Broncos country, we're like, no, just stay healthy. You'll be good. Yeah. It's just odd the way that works out in terms of the speed with one Jaleel McLaughlin and two Marvin Mims.
I actually think Mims could put a little bit more muscle on and still be fast. I think, he needs to add a little bit. He can be a little bit of a smaller stature guy, but he needs the strength. I don't know if Jaleel McLaughlin can. I think he's going to be kind of one of those smaller scat backs. And I think he's going to be in a dogfight with Blake Watson is the guy I was thinking of earlier. I think he's going to be in a dogfight for that kind of change of pace guy, because Blake Watson probably has a little bit more. If you look at him standing side by side, he's probably a little bit more durable. He's still smaller, but he's thicker. And I think he brings the same skill set. So, you never know who's going to pop out. Someone's got to do it on offense. Someone has to do it on defense other than what we've seen already. So hopefully it's one of those, a surprising guy. I'd like to see it. It'd be great if it was Estime, like he came in and was like a stud running back. But again, I just got to cross my fingers. I know we had a great running back drafted in the 6th round here in Denver, but it doesn't happen all the time. So
no, well, it's been a while. Javonte Williams. I mean, when was the last solid, good running back drafted by the Denver Broncos? I mean, keep in mind, it's kind of a loaded question when you consider the position, and that the position doesn't have a lot of longevity, right? And it's just, I don't know, man. It's for me, you could go back to Philip Lindsay and undrafted and all his success. You could talk about Javonte Williams, had some success too, but it's never like consistent. And I get that the position has changed and Christian's like one of a kind out there in San Francisco. And the fact that Kyle puts that offense on him and he's paid what he's paid. At times it appears to be a little reckless to me, but what the hell do I know? I'm not a coach in the league. Blake Watson, the team did like him last year, Tom. I mean, we liked seeing him, right? I think we had some practice notes out there, or
No, this is the undrafted
mixing
guy
up
this
guys?
year.
Was it
The undrafted
McLaughlin
running back
last year
from
that we
this year.
liked? Who was our undrafted? It was McLaughlin we were on last year, but there was another
McLaughlin,
guy.
yeah.
There was another guy too. Was it Tyler Beatty, the little white guy out there?
Yeah, he was all right. I don't remember another running back that really popped though
No.
last year.
Okay, I might
It
be
was the
thinking of Beatty a
receiver
little bit.
Grimes that we really liked that didn't make the team. He was
That's
catching
right.
everything out there. He was a little wide receiver that had
That's who
hands
I'm
that you couldn't
thinking of.
believe. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another cool thing out there in training camp too, right? Everybody's on underdog alert, trying to find the next diamond in the rough, and the Broncos' rich history with undrafted free agents. And is there still a streak going on, Tom? Is there still an active streak for the Broncos and undrafted free agents for however many years in a row now?
It's not a full streak because they did one of the years in between there. I can't remember what it was that they did not have one on the 53-man roster to start the season. But otherwise, I think it's like 22 years, 21 out of 22 years in a row that they've had an undrafted rookie make the team.
Makes you wonder who it's going to be this year, right?
Yeah.
And what if there's more than one? That means it was the Broncos scouting department, coaching staff, they did a really good job finding some developmental talent. Maybe one of them's a starter. I don't know. That would be a big leap, right? To go from an undrafted free agent to starting in your rookie season. Crazier things have happened in this life and in the NFL, but man, it would mean that the Broncos scouting department is starting to figure things out. It would mean that they're preparing for the future instead of just worrying about the now and not thinking of tomorrow. That's gotten the Broncos in so much trouble throughout the years, trying to go with the Band-Aid, let's pay, let's trade, quick approach. I think they're cultivating something here with Bo Nix. At least I hope they are.
Well, remember last year, didn't they have 4 undrafted rookies make the team? They had Nate Atkins, McLaughlin, Palczewski, and there was another, I think it was was it an edge rusher or somebody? I thought there was 4 that made the team.
Wasn't the nickel guy? Was it
McMillan? No, he was was his second year.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like it was Incoom, Thomas Incoom, the edge rusher. So they had 4 undrafted rookies make the team last year, which is great. I mean, from one perspective, you're like, okay, that's great scouting, great for them. But on the other hand, it's like, wow, we had 4 of them made the team. Maybe the makeup of the team to begin with wasn't so hot. So it's a catch-22 there. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I love seeing these underdogs make it. They just seem to like really want it more, and they play really hard. They're fun to watch. And so, and then they can develop into something. Chris Harris Jr. is one. Rod Smith, another great one that did it. So it's fun to watch.
Well, I know Thomas Incoom is your namesake and everything, but I don't know, man. Like, part of me wonders too, like with the Randy Gregory situation from last year. I mean, the Broncos were kind of caught with their pants down in multiple position rooms, and I hope that's not the case. I get it. Not everything can be addressed in one offseason and one free agency and one draft, but we're hoping for good things here in training camp in the next couple of weeks. We'll be back next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mountain, where you can catch Thomas Hall and yours truly every Wednesday night. Head on over to X, give Tom a follow at Thomas Hall NFL. Reach out to him on X. Slide into his DMs, as the kids would say. I'm over at Luke Patterson LP. You can reach out to Scott at Scout Kennedy. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com, where we referenced today's subject. Courtland Sutton going to hold out? Is he going to hold in? Is he going to show up to training camp? Keith Cummings has an article up right now over at milehighhuddle.com. And then PFF makes a bold claim about Bo Nix replacing about Bo Nix replacing Russell Wilson as the Broncos quarterback. You can read about that from Chad Jensen over at milehighhuddle.com. Head on over to X, give our pod a follow as well. That's at MHI_pod. Tom, another good show. Another Wednesday in the books. We're this much closer to training camp, baby.
Yeah, I'm loving it because I thought it was Tuesday. So now that it's Wednesday, it's even better. It means the week is almost over, one day closer to the weekend than I realized. So
Hell yeah.
I'm pretty happy about that.
It never happens that way. It's always in
Yes.
reverse, it's Wednesday. We're excited for Wednesday here on MHI. We appreciate Broncos Country, another fun show. We understand that sometimes the lack of a news cycle, it comes and goes. However, the Broncos aren't getting in trouble. Nobody's getting hurt. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to. You got 12 Denver Broncos, couple quarterbacks throwing out there in Dallas. I like it. I'm hoping Coach Sean Payton, the scouts, I hope everybody's doing their job over there or working remote, whatever they got to do, because we're the final calm before the storm, man. I mean, this is going to be it. The next, after these 2 weeks, it's on and training camp, and it doesn't slow down.
Yeah, for sure. So enjoy it, because I can't believe that's already mid-July, man. So enjoy this summer before it's gone. I remember I telling you last year, you were in a hurry for NFL. I was like, no, you want it to come slowly, and when it gets here, fine. But the summer's almost over. It's incredible. So enjoy it. Broncos fans or anybody out there listening to us, enjoy what's left of the summer, and we'll get right into it come training camp. It's going to be a lot going on.
Boom. It's going to be a lot going on. Stay locked on to Mile High Huddle for all of your Broncos coverage. We appreciate each and every one of you for making this show. Broncos Country into the offseason, 2 more weeks. This is the way.
This is the way.